We'll look at that later. But I want you to notice some things that we can draw out of this lesson, not only from a perspective of realizing what happened with Haman, but make sure that we're not manifesting the same type of behavior in our lives as Haman did. In Esther chapter 5, verse 9, the Bible said, "Then went forth Haman that day joyful and with a glad heart." And why did he do that? Well, he was just in a banquet with the king and the queen. So he was all happy. And then it says, "But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood up, not up, nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai." This word indignation, it means anger or extreme anger mingled with contempt. So his contempt for Mordecai is displayed, disgust or abhorrence. And really what he's doing is he's fretting over someone's behavior that he cannot control. And really what he did was he allowed someone else to dictate his mood or his actions. I heard one man say, the man that can make you mad is actually your master. And if you think about your reaction and your response to other people, isn't it amazing how weak this man is to let someone else dictate how he feels? He comes out of a banquet with the king and queen. You think, I mean, would you really, you would hope that you would not care that someone would not acknowledge you or not move for you or whatever because of the joyful aspect of just coming out of a banquet, yet he had no idea what that banquet was really for. So what we can learn out of this is allowing someone else to dictate our moods is not something that we should do. The Bible said here in verse 9, he was joyful and with a glad heart. And it quickly moves to indignation against Mordecai and outright contempt. The Bible said in verse 10, "Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself. And when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and for Zeresh, his wife." And so really what we see here in verse 11 also is his pride and his boasting. The Bible said in verse 11, "And Haman told them of the glory of his riches and the multitude of his children and all the things wherein the king had promoted him and how he had advanced him above the princes and servants of the king." Now hold your place here. We're going to go over to the book of Luke. Let's go to Luke chapter 12. Luke chapter 12, and look with me in verse 15. Now, as you're looking toward that verse, let me say this. Haman told them of all the glory of all his riches. He told him of the multitude of his children. We know he had 10 sons. And then he started talking about his promotion. Okay, now, Jesus said in Luke 12:15, "And he said to them, Take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of things which he possesseth." So here he is glorying in all his riches, glorying in all his promotions. Now, if you think most people in that time, they were living day to day, trying to feed themselves, trying to get water. We don't know that kind of suffering, do we? We don't know what it is to have to, maybe you do. Maybe you were raised in an era to where you had to do those things. But if you look at the activity of God's creatures, you just look at birds. Birds they rest. They rest normally at night. Some of them do, but they're very active all day long. They're either feeding themselves with sustenance, or they're trying to hunt water, or they're trying to get away from cats. I help them with that, though. But anyway, they're constantly busy. And one man said this: since about 1895, our prosperity has really eliminated us from having that kind of daily hardship. And so if you could think about, we don't know what the prosperity level was or the wealth level was of this man's friends, but he calls them all in and he's bragging on how wealthy he is and everything he has. And it would test the patience of the best man there not to either be envious or just say, I really don't have time for this garbage, right? I mean, especially someone that has struggled and then have to listen to this prideful man. But look back with me in the book of Esther, chapter 5, and look with me in verse 12 and 13. In verse 12 and 13, Haman said, moreover, yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared, but myself. And tomorrow am I invited unto her also with the king. I mean, he is just gloating over this. And here's verse 13. Yet all of this availeth me nothing. Now, he is a drama mama. All of this availeth me nothing. So long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Drama. Who has time for drama? All of this availeth me nothing. All my riches, all this. He is so weak, but yet you understand he's the second most powerful man in this kingdom. Therefore, when you have a weak man in control, you have a despot, a potential despot, which we know he was. You have someone that really is not even thinking clearly because he can't even control his own spirit. And the Bible said that when you can't control your spirit, you're like a city where the walls broken down. You are open for attack and you are open for invasion. And this man's emotions are not, he's not stable. He's already plotted the murder of the Jews. But yet he is so consumed with himself that I believe that if he looks at Mordecai's reaction in response to him, he's not happy unless he thinks everybody loves him. So let's learn some things. Everybody doesn't love you. The Bible said that there's going to be people that hate you. They hated Jesus Christ, they're going to hate you also. And so when you stand up for right, you're going to be a hated person. If you look at it from the position of Mordecai, Mordecai was not willing to bow the knee. Hey, when you start bowing the knee, when does that ever stop? It doesn't stop. Someone, somewhere, some way has got to stand up and say, enough's enough. And that's what Mordecai did. But here you have a weak man in a high position of power, and he is not emotionally stable to the fact that he says all of his riches, all of his family, all of this promotion, all these things avail me nothing. Drama. The average man would be so elated to be invited by a personal invitation to a banquet hosted by a king and queen, he wouldn't care what Mordecai did. I mean, if he was on a horse or he's on a camel or he's on a donkey or he's just walking, who cares? Move on, right? Yes. You would think a small thing would not bother him. So let's learn something, because there's a characteristic in the human nature that's also evident in the life of Haman. And it is our tendency to focus on things that are irritating to us. And isn't it funny how we focus on one spot? One point of irritation, that's what we focus on. We get so preoccupied with what people think. My dad, many years ago, we were sitting on the porch, and he said, I was having some tough times at school when I was in junior high. He said, son, if you think people are sitting at home thinking about you, you're wrong. He said they're sitting on their porch eating fried chicken, watermelon, and drinking sweet tea, rocking in the swing. They don't care about you, and they are not thinking about you. You just need to move on and take care of your own business. That's very good advice. See, preachers could be at a speaking engagement, and I learned this. You could be at a speaking engagement, have a large crowd in front of you, and have one guy snarling his face at you, and yet that's who you have a tendency to focus on. Well, here's what I learned. Sometimes people are having bad days. I've told you this before. This man, he was looking at me all which way. I thought, man, that guy, no doubt, that man hates me for the way he's looking at me, or he seriously disagrees with what I'm saying. And when the service was over, I saw him walking toward me, and I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go, right? And so he's walking up to me, and as he walks up to me, he says, oh, preacher, he said, please forgive me. He said, my stomach has been killing me since I've been in here all night long. I mean, I can't get comfortable. And right there, I realized how stupid I was. Even though I'm involved in public speaking and preaching the Bible, I'm getting focused on some guy that's got a calloused face. And here's something else I learned. I'm not going to rob sheep. If there is a goat in the crowd, I'm not going to rob sheep to take care of a goat. So if there's a goat in the crowd, be a goat. Your problem's with God. It's not with me. But our tendency is, and especially when I was in my young 20s, if I saw a goat in the crowd, I mean, man, it was like mano a mano right here. We're just going to do what you're going to do. Are you here for the truth? That's the question. Our tendency is to focus on things that we should not focus on. What we need to do is we need to be people of thanksgiving, and we need to focus on what the Lord has for us and enjoy what God has for us. I want to pose this question. What do you think would have happened if Haman would have totally ignored Mordecai from the beginning? Just totally ignored him. Do you understand the power that this man has and just ignoring? How many times that we get focused or preoccupied? I'll give you this. Are there some times to where you've been in a work conflict situation and a boss cliffhang you and say, I want to talk to you tomorrow about something? And you lay home at night and you toss and turn to your bed thinking, what in the world does he want to talk to me about in the morning? And then you get to work and you fretted and tossed and turned all night in the bed, and you get there and you find out it wasn't anything what you thought about. Right? Woe was us. It's a prime example when you look at the issue with Mordecai and Haman and what Haman was doing. It's a prime example of an attempt to suppress someone from expressing an opinion that differs from the narrative. You see, he was willing to kill the Jews, and he refrained himself from doing anything that day, but he had already enacted a dictate by the hand of the king that all these people were going to die. If you're so confident in your position, Haman, why squelch the opinion or the arena of facts? Just because someone doesn't agree with you doesn't mean that they're wrong. What happened in America when we used to have free discourse that now we don't? And what happened when the liberal used to stand and scream and holler, I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it? Some people have hailed that Patrick Henry said that, and then some lady with the last name of Hall said that. I don't know who said that. All I know is hippies were saying it in the 60s. Hey, I don't agree with you, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. What happened in America with that? See, what was transpiring was Mordecai was refusing to bow. And do you remember those that were putting pressure on him to comply? Look back with me as a reminder. Let's go to Esther chapter 3. And let's look at verse 3 and 4. Then the king's, in verse 3, then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, why transgressest thou the king's commandment? And verse 4, now it came to pass when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. So here they're coming at him every day. When it comes to your freedom, and it comes to freedom not only as a Christian, but as an American. And as it was with Mordecai, you better stand. And it always is going to cost, but the results are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and freedom. Those are the things. The cost may be extremely high. It may be your life. Those that have gone before us in this nation have suffered much and paid for our freedom. I mean, they've paid for it with their life. And how often we just go about taking for granted what's been done for us and realize, look, man, somebody has to stand up. See, I want to give you this thought. As an average Jew, would you ever think that Haman would plot to kill all the Jews? You see, what happened was that he gained the ear of the king, and they both would be so callous that they determined, we're killing all of them. So the average Jew may have said to himself out in the provinces, no one could be that evil. No one could be that evil. Well, when you have a weak man in power, there's no restraint. So when you observe what had happened, they would say, well, no one could be that evil. Well, that may be true in the circles that you know, but there's real evil, and there are people that are seriously evil. You see, then we look at this issue. The Bible said in Proverbs 26:27, whoso diggeth a pit shall fall therein, and he that rolleth a stone, it will return upon him. At the last part of the verse, I'm going to give you this, and then we'll pick up this next week. But look with me at the last part of the chapter. Let's go back to chapter 5. We'll read verse 13 and 14. This is the absolute worst advice that he could have ever received. Verse 13, yet all of this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Then said Zeresh his wife and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. The gallows, these gallows 50 cubits high, is equivalent to 5 stories. Most of the palaces of the places there, they may have been large, but in the living areas of that day, a 5-story gallows would be very easy to see. It'd be no secret that it was there. And here they are making this suggestion, hey, why don't you build these gallows and you hang Mordecai, you talk to the king, get Mordecai hung, and then you go in merrily to the banquet. All right, so let me say this. There are some people that are so callous that they could have someone murdered and go in and feast and not give any thought to it whatsoever. And Haman was not the only one. His wife was that way, and his friends were the same way. Do you see how callous this group of people were? This little circle of people plotting the death of one man that's done nothing but stand up for what's right. I want to give you this thought as we leave kind of an open opportunity to be able to look at next week. When you observe the book of Job, I love the book of Job. I try to listen to it every day. So, and I listen to Alexander Scorby read Job. I love the emphasis that he puts. The intellectual banter between Job and his friends is quite remarkable. And it's like you're listening to these theological geniuses that are just going back and forth and back and forth. But there's something unique about the book of Job. In the first conversations, you'll see that the devil brings up this issue of contempt. And he uses the word curse. Hey, you've put a hedge of protection around him, and I'm paraphrasing, and God, you've protected him. You put your hand to him, and he'll curse you to the face. He will curse you to the face. Then you see the issue of Job make sacrifices for his children because he said maybe they've cursed God in their heart. But then the real problem is this. His wife is used by the devil. When their children are killed, she gets to a point to where she's suffering and she's feeling this difficulty and whatever. And here's what I want to share with you. There are people that would make justification to commit homicide or genocide, and it's not a problem with them. Adolf Hitler is a prime example. What they did is they demonized the Jews, they exterminated the Jews, and does anybody even remember? I mean, there's a group of people locally that call themselves a church and deny the Holocaust. What is wrong with you? So as we look at the issue of them murdering the Jews, you see here that some people are used by the devil, but yet we'll justify, well, it's okay with this or okay with that, or, Mordecai disrespected you, so you ought to talk to the king. You build the gallows, tell the king you got somewhere to hang him, and just hang him, and then go eat merrily. Job's wife lost the kids just like he did. Job's wife lost all their wealth just like he did. But she was used of the devil to use the tactics of the devil and go out and tell her husband, hey, curse God, dost thou retain thy integrity? I mean, you're still going to be spiritual? You're still going to be a spiritual man? Why don't you just cuss God and die? Directly used by the devil. And when we see people with characteristics of Haman, we need to understand that Haman was satanically backed, and Haman made very, very dangerous plot to kill the Jews. But he specifically went after Mordecai, and when you dig that pit, brother, you need to understand that you're going to fall in it. When you roll that rock up that hill to roll up on somebody else, it's going to roll right back down on you. We need to take heed that we do not manifest the behavior of Haman. Because when we start getting preoccupied with the things that have offended us, man, there's more to come behind that. It doesn't walk alone. It has more companions than what you know. And if we are not guided by the Spirit of God, we're walking in the flesh. And do you not know how wicked your flesh is? Oh, there's nobody like that I know. I don't know. I'll tell you this. Haman was a very unstable man, a very weak man, in a very high position of power, and that made him a very dangerous, dangerous man. Oh, but he's messing with the wrong person, because he's not messing with Mordecai. He's dealing with God and God's people. And it's going to cost him more than what he ever expected. Every head bowed, every eye closed.